Cowboy Nation, I have been staring at this move for days, and I still cannot decide if it is the smartest thing this front office has done in years or the most desperate. And honestly, it might be both at the same time. Let me explain this to you. But before we get into it, one fan to another, I have got a quick ask. Subscribe to the channel and drop your take in the comments, because this one is going to split the room right down the middle. You ready? Let's go. Okay, let me start with the truth nobody wants to say out loud. The 2025 Dallas Cowboys defense was not just bad, it was historically broken. And I am not using that word loosely. I mean, this was the single worst defense to ever wear a star on that helmet. Full stop. The pass defense was ranked dead last in the entire NFL, 32nd out of 32 teams. They surrendered over 251 yards through the air every single game. In today's NFL, if you cannot stop the pass, you cannot win football games, period. It gets worse when you look at the scoreboard. 511 total points allowed on the season. That is a new franchise record, and not the kind you hang a banner for. Nearly 30 points a game. For a team that still believes it has championship DNA, that number is a death sentence. And why was it that bad? Because they could not get to the quarterback. 31 sacks all year. 31. Elite playoff defenses are generating 45 to 55 sacks. The Cowboys were nearly 20 sacks short of being considered a functional pass rushing unit. When there is no pressure, even mediocre quarterbacks have all day to carve you apart. And then the run game. 24 rushing touchdowns allowed because they could not set the edge. Opposing backs were not finding holes. They were strolling into the end zone because nobody on the outside had the strength or the discipline to stop them. You do not make a dramatic position change for a starting caliber linebacker unless you're in survival mode. And looking at those numbers, survival mode is exactly where the Cowboys are living right now. So, what is the plan? Because the Cowboys are not just changing one player's position, they are tearing down the entire defensive identity and rebuilding it from scratch. And that starts with Christian Parker, the new defensive coordinator, and the vision he walked in with. For years, Dallas has been a 4-3 team, 4 linemen, 3 linebackers. That was the comfort zone. That was the identity. Parker is flipping the whole script and moving this defense to a 3-4 base. And in a 3-4, the outside linebackers are your primary pass rushers. They stand up on the edge. They do not put their hand in the dirt like a traditional end. That shift creates the perfect hybrid role for a player like Marist Liufau because he doesn't need to be a 270-pound defensive end. He can be a standing edge player who uses speed and length to create chaos. Parker is calling this defense multiple, and I love that word because it tells you everything. He's not running a rigid, old-school system. He wants chess pieces, not checkers pieces. He wants Liufau rushing the passer on one snap and dropping into coverage on the next. That unpredictability is exactly what a defense ranked 32nd needs to survive. But to make this work, tough decisions had to be made. The Cowboys cut veteran linebacker Logan Wilson, which freed up $6.5 million in cap space. And here's the thing about that move. Fans thought Liufau was simply sliding into Wilson's inside linebacker spot. Instead, Parker gambled bigger. He took the guy who was supposed to fill the hole and moved him to the front line. That's bold. That is either visionary or reckless, and we're going to find out which one. Now here's where it gets fascinating, because this move only works if the body can do what the scheme demands. And right now, Marist Liufau is an incomplete physical project. Start with the good news. The man has 34.25-inch arms. That puts him in the 97th percentile of every NFL player alive. In the trenches, length is life. If your arms are longer than the offensive tackle's arms, you can stab him in the chest before he ever grabs your jersey. You win that leverage battle before it even starts. And his arms are actually longer than many elite edge rushers and even some Pro Bowl offensive tackles. That's a natural reach advantage most linebackers simply do not have. But here's the problem. He weighs 239 pounds. A typical NFL edge rusher walks in between 255 and 265. At 239, a tackle will eventually just bully him. In a run play, he gets washed out entirely. So the Cowboys have set a hard deadline. He needs to gain 10 to 12 pounds of real functional weight by April 20th. Eat big, lift heavy, and hit that 250-pound mark before the offseason program starts without losing the one thing that makes him dangerous. His 40-yard dash is 4.64. That's speed, real speed. If he can get from 239 to 250 and keep that burst, he becomes what scouts call a twitched-up speed rusher, faster than almost every tackle he will ever face. He can dip and rip around the corner before the tackle even gets his feet set. Physically, the ceiling is real, but the gap between where he is and where he needs to be is not small. The Cowboys are betting their training staff can close it.
And here is the part that nobody wants to say directly but needs to be said. This is not just a football decision. This is a financial survival tack. The Cowboys are heading into 2026 anywhere from $30 to $60 million over the salary cap. When you are that far in the red, you are not shopping for stars in free agency. You are trying to figure out which starters you have to cut just to keep the lights on. And on top of that, they are likely looking at needing roughly $28 million just to place the franchise tag on George Pickens. Every dollar protecting that offense is a dollar that cannot fix a defense that finished last in the league. So, if the Cowboys wanted a proven plug-and-play veteran edge rusher, names like Jalen Phillips, Khalil Mack, Joey Bosa, you are looking at $17 to $22 million per year. They simply do not have that much money. And you know Marist Liufau was on his rookie contract. He costs approximately $1.5 million. So the Cowboys are attempting to create a $15 million per year impact player for the price of a backup. That is either financial genius or a desperate prayer dressed up in strategy clothes. And I will be real with you, it is probably a little of both. But here is where my opinion started to shift. Because when you dig past the box score numbers, you start to see something different. You start to see a player whose real skills were being completely wasted at the wrong position. In 2024, Liufau forced 2 fumbles in just 521 snaps. For reference, Pro Bowl veteran Eric Kendricks needed 920 snaps to force 3. At inside linebacker, those opportunities are rare. Move him to the edge, where he is around the ball and the quarterback on every single play, and you stop counting tackles and start counting strip sacks. That is a different animal entirely. And in 2025, when the Cowboys tried to make him the green dot leader, the communicator, the guy managing the whole defense before every snap, his production collapsed. 30 tackles, 1 sack. He looked paralyzed, not because he is not talented, but because they put him in a box that did not fit. By moving him to the edge, they're telling him something simple. Do not worry about the whole defense. Just beat the man in front of you and get the ball. Now here is the part that I keep coming back to. The part that makes me believe this is not desperation alone. It's the Haason Reddick blueprint. And if you know that story, you already know why this matters so much. Reddick came into the league as an inside linebacker for the Arizona Cardinals. He was considered a bust, a wasted pick, a guy who just did not fit. Then Arizona moved him to the edge in his final year with the team. And what happened? He exploded for 12.5 sacks immediately. Then 16 sacks the following season. He went from bust to Pro Bowl superstar almost overnight. Not because he suddenly became a different person, because he finally got put in the right position. Christian Parker is betting that Marist Liufau is the next Haason Reddick. He sees tweeners, too small for traditional linebackers, but with the explosive punch, the length, and the motor to thrive on the edge. If that comparison holds even 70% true, the Cowboys did not just find a cheap replacement. They found a game changer hiding in plain sight on their own roster. And if Liufau works, the ripple effect on the 2026 draft is enormous. Because before this move, the Cowboys were trapped. With the 32nd ranked pass defense and almost no pass rush, they would have been forced to use one of their 2 first-round picks on an edge rusher. Pick 12 or pick 20, gone. Locked in. No flexibility. Now, with Liufau penciled in at edge, those picks open up. Pick 12 can go toward a shutdown cornerback to fix a secondary that was getting torched every Sunday. Pick 20 can target a dominant defensive tackle, a nose tackle who eats double teams, keeps the linebackers clean, and makes Liufau's job on the outside that much easier. That is fixing 3 major defensive holes with 2 picks. So Liufau is the magic trick that makes the math work, if it works. That is still the biggest word in all of this.